Malcolm Turnbull's summit on economic reform has been overshadowed by his predecessor, Tony Abbott, taking to the airwaves again. Mr Abbott's revealed he never trusted the now Prime Minister, believing he was always intending to seize the leadership. Live to Parliament House in Canberra, and our political reporter Francis Keeney joins us. Good evening to you, Francis. Let's start with today's summit at Parliament House. It resulted in a lot of promises for change, but not much detail. What exactly is the government planning to adopt?
Well, the government says that anything to do with innovation is something that they'll be carefully looking at. But in terms of a lot of the raft of ideas that we've had from today's meeting with 8 key lobby groups, including ACOS, the ACTU, the AI Group and the BCA, to name a few, we'll have to wait and see. Now, before the meeting, a lot of those groups were talking about superannuation tax reform, concerns that a lot of those concessions for wealthy retirees are too generous and that they should be wound back. The GST was also due to be discussed. A few people are keen to see the GST increase from 10 to 15%, as long as there's enough compensation for low to middle income earners. But the government today saying that it's likely to take a closer look at some of the possible recommendations for university reform, looking at maybe closer ties to businesses between higher education. This is the Cabinet Secretary Arthur Sinodinos. He was on Capitol Hill earlier today. This is his response to today's meeting. Let's have a listen.
You can't boil the ocean. There is some stuff we'll be able to do before Christmas, potentially an innovation package. And there was a lot of talk today about innovation. Other stuff will happen more in the context of the budget. But let's get the input and let's move on from there. But the first stage was to get people in the room, look each other in the eye and see about whether they can work together.
Now, Francis, against the backdrop of that economic summit, Tony Abbott surfaced again, this time in Melbourne. What did he have to say?
Well, that's right. He was on Radio 3AW in Melbourne earlier today, just a couple of days after another radio interview in Sydney, and he's urged Liberal supporters to stick with Malcolm Turnbull. But despite a promise that he made 2 weeks ago that he wouldn't be sniping from the sidelines, he seems to be making a few comments otherwise. He was asked on Radio 3AW about whether or not he trusts Malcolm Turnbull given the events of the past fortnight. Let's take a look.
Well, that's a very good question, and it's probably...
And we do appear to be having some difficulties there. We were, of course, looking at Tony Abbott and earlier speaking to Francis Keeney in Canberra. We'll move on for now.